Welcome to the Laws of Style, featuring conversations on creativity, fashion, and the law from the leading edge of our economy and culture. Hosted by noted fashion lawyer Douglas Hand.
Hello and welcome to the Laws of Style. I'm your host, Douglas Hand, and for this episode, I'm joined by Cian McAuliffe. He is the founder of Beggar's Run, which is an Irish made-to-measure menswear tailor. Cian, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
So you grew up in West Cork, Ireland, which, before there was an American Wild West, that has to be kind of the OG Wild West, right? How from there did your interest in menswear start?
Well, a slight correction there. I was born in Cork, 4 years there, and then we went to Sligo, which is in the northwest.
Northwest.
So we're still on the west coast. It's now a tourist trail from all along the west coast, and it's called the Wild Atlantic Way.
And I've heard there are some remarkably huge waves that crash upon that coast.
Yeah, just north of Sligo, you have Mullaghmore, and you get 40 foots there. You got a lot of surf competitions, but you weren't wet for sure.
It's become a bit of a mecca. So how from there came the interest in menswear?
My earliest recollections of making kind of independent choices were 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
Me and my one or two little buddies, and it was, should we get this nice Chevion jumper or Levi's and the right 501s, and just those little signals that you're a little bit different than everyone else and a little more considered. That was kind of my early ways into kind of style, personal style, fashion. And really, when I kind of go back and think about it, why I kept coming back to this thing of how we dress is, I come from a really, my mother's painfully shy. My dad's a bit reserved. I was shy. I struggled a bit with speech when I was younger, super shy. And then I think clothes allowed me, I would say, my language, my way of expression. So people would see me and go, hey, this guy's interesting. I'm going to go and say hello and talk to that guy. So that for me was the kind of icebreaker, because I didn't have that character that would go, because I was just shy. And when you're shy, you have a lot of voices in your mind going, is someone going to judge me, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. No, it's undoubtedly its own language, and you don't have to necessarily confront somebody or speak to them to communicate it. I'd say in some minds, it's bolder really to be that interesting dresser in some ways, but obviously in different ways. You're putting yourself out there, not in a verbal way, but in more of a just visual, and also what your style is does say a lot about you.
Yeah, so I can remember when my parents had moved to Germany. I had a year there when I was 13, and then I was sent back to a boarding school in the west of Ireland, in my hometown, Sligo. But then I would go to my grandmother's house, which is in Mayo. And I'd be dressed with kind of funky hair, tie-dye military jackets, flares, and you'd be walking down the street and you'd see the local guys, the townies, and you'd be like, I might cross over here because I'm signaling that I'm going to get beaten up here. But yeah, as you said there, you have to carry a conviction, because sometimes it's hard to be different because you get singled out by people, etc. But also you get the plaudits. But yeah, it's a hard road to follow sometimes.
Well, so let's flash forward to 2010. Beggar's Run is launched above an East End pub. What were those early days like?
A music analogy would be punk. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like, can we play 3 chords? Then we can make a band. So I kind of, before I started it, I was traveling in Europe. I dropped out of college, and I had an idea to make a 4-sided trouser in my head. So I could visually see it in my head, but I couldn't actually make it. Because usually a trouser is 1 panel on the front, 1 panel on the back. And when I'm looking at my leg, I'm going, it's a little more square than flat. So why not do square trouser. So that led me on a discovery where I went to go to a fashion college where I worked with a professor there. He made up a prototype. Then I went to some tailors in Dublin, and I would harass them and badger them. Could we make this thing? And they'd be like, I'm making a suit here. But just sit there and wait. And then I'd sit there watching these tailors for 4 or 5 hours. And while I was there, I was soaking up all that information. And actually, one of the tailors asked me, would I be an apprentice for him? And I rather cheekily said, no, that's okay. I'm going to have tailors working for me, which turned out to be true a little bit later down the line. But who knows how my path would have been if I'd become a master tailor. But then I think if you become a master tailor, it doesn't allow you to build a brand and to design as much. It's hard to do both, I think. So yeah, that I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but yeah,
no, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, one of the things talking about tailoring. So
yeah.
that was some of your original sort of design exposure and perhaps inspiration. I've always found that tailored clothing, one of the great benefits is that it's a great frame. It doesn't necessarily wear the person, it frames the person. And even though it can be in prints and colors that may be attention grabbing, that the basis for it is really kind of a frame, and a frame for an aging gentleman, that kind of helps widen the shoulders and narrow the waist, which we all want, but also a frame that just kind of focuses on you in a way that it's not the clothes speaking for you at that point. It's not the clothes that are necessarily remembered. Hopefully it's you. Do you think that tailored clothing kind of has that effect, that Beau Brummel impact of sort of, the perfect frame for somebody? The statement is understatement.
Definitely. And I think a lot of that is what's the character of the person who's coming to you to get a suit. Mm-hmm. Sometimes someone might want to go for something a little bit more exaggerated or too bold, and that mightn't work for that character. So then you have to tell that person, you will now become you will look like a character as opposed to you, and that will be a step too far. We want to embellish you, but also not make you look like you're in costume.
Yeah.
And that's the fine distinction. You could get there. Sometimes I tell customers, you could get there, but you need to make steps to get there. Otherwise, you will just you will just spin people out who know you, because that isn't who you are, and then you're wearing a costume as opposed to, it's not Doug there, it's someone else there.
Well, there is a bit in menswear writ large. So outside of just tailored clothing, I do find that there are these surfwear and golf wear and heritage workwear. That there is a little bit of a riff in some channels of menswear that is kind of cosplay that I don't necessarily see in women's wear. Do you think that's part of just the male psyche? Like some guys just want to be a lumberjack, so they dress up like a lumberjack, or they want to be this basketball player, so they wear trainers and athleisure all the time?
I think it's a little deeper than that. I think it's men looking for a sense of belonging. I feel, especially in this age, people are becoming more isolated. Men in particular becoming more isolated. We're so much on our computers, so much on our phones, so much in our kids, so much, and it's like, who am I? And if you can catch on to this identity, then I can fit in with this group, and it gives that little sense of belonging that people are looking for. But then you look like you're following the herd, and you can look like on the outside you're looking a bit confused, because 2 days ago you were a lumberjack, now you're a motorbike guy. Which guy are you? But I definitely think it's coming from people grasping for wanting to belong, or it being a tribe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you've started a company, you've grown a company, you've obviously dealt with accountants and lawyers and bankers. As a customer of those service professionals, those white collar service professionals. Do you prefer to see them in tailored clothing, or are you okay with people who are selling that service, wearing whatever they want and sometimes not being in tailored clothing?
If I'm a client and I'm dealing with that person, I want them to be dressed. Otherwise, what are they signaling to me if they're in shorts and a t-shirt? I understand that the flexibility now is, look, I'm not seeing a client every day, so then you shouldn't have to dress up in a suit if you don't want to. But if you want to be, I think when you look in the mirror and you're going, what kind of day am I going to have? And if you're there in a t-shirt, you're not dressed, you're probably going to be maybe a little bit less productive. Also, what are you signaling to your colleagues? And especially when you're with a client, you have to dress appropriately for the job that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I also think there's an element of just respecting the work and respecting the client. I mean, it's not, putting a suit on isn't torture, right? Even putting a tie on. I think a lot of men feel that is restrictive, but I find it to be a little bit of a sartorial opportunity, right? Some more color, a different pattern.
Yeah.
But
and I think a great thing about that trend now is it allows the person who likes to dress up, put the tie on, to look even better because less people are doing it. So it's an advantage now too, and it's even a little bit counterculture. It's cooler now to do it because less people are doing it.
Yeah.
So I think it's great for niche tailoring businesses.
And have you found that with, post-COVID, people returning to offices, back in real life meetings, that while there may have been a bit of a dip in the market for men's suiting, that it has perked right back up?
I think it's changed in a way that, hey, I want to have one or two really good suits because I don't wear a suit every day, and I don't want to buy off the rack because I don't feel that good in those suits because they don't fit me so well. And I think we're finding more people discovering who we are who wouldn't have gone to those lengths before. They would have just gone with the first thing they saw. Mm-hmm. So I think, yeah, there's definitely that kind of, it's a movement, less but better.
Yeah. Well, here may also be a movement. I feel like traditional men's tailored clothing had a lack of imagination, maybe, or playfulness. You may have seen this as you were brought up and learned about men's tailoring. But why do you think that is? Why do you think it is so steeped in tradition, and therefore so many suits come out looking very traditional?
A lot of that, I think, has been dictated by work. The suit was for work, black, gray, navy. That's it. And then you had your summer suit. There's also, I think, men are a little bit, heterosexual men are a little bit worried to play with color because it might signal the wrong thing. And then that stigma, I think, has been disappearing in the last decade or so. I think men are getting a little freer to try that. But I think men are also, they're I can't wear this color. There's such a, could I wear this color? Could I wear that color?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we do, is we do a curated range of fabrics. So we work with mills mainly in the north of England. We work with McGee in Ireland, and we'll buy a piece of fabric, which is typically 60, 70 meters. Or if we're really confident, we'll buy 2 pieces or 3 or 4. And we make the sample up. So we have lots of color because that's what we like for fabric led. So we'll have maybe 80 fabrics curated in the showroom, and then the guy can try it on. So he might come in with this, I want a navy suit, and like, let's go with a dark green. Couldn't do that. Put it on. Wow. Didn't think I could wear that. And it really helps people to see themselves differently. But I think from looking at a swatch, most men will never make that leap to go into the color spectrum because it's risky. And they don't have that assurance or belief in themselves that they could do it.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you look at the history. The history was so conservative for so long.
Right.
Bar the 1960s.
Fair enough. Well, so you've touched on a bit of the process, but I imagine a lot of our listeners have not had the benefit of the made to measure experience. So can you walk us through from start to finish how someone walks in and then ultimately, after perhaps several visits, walks out with a made-to-measure suit?
Definitely. So generally, even before someone comes in, we like to have, if it's an appointment, we always like to not like, we don't let people book in on the calendar. We want to already get a dialogue going on an email or on a phone call. What is it you need a suit for? So immediately I would be prepared as you walk in already. It's for this, this, and this. So I'm going through my mind what it is that will fit what you need. But yeah, the first thing is, what do you need a suit for? Is it for a work situation? Is it for just to have a suit? You can multifunctional. You can wear for dinner. A lot of times people are coming to you. It's for a specific need, and it might be a wedding, or something like that, or an awards show. And for us, once we find that information, then we start the process of like, let's start trying on some jackets, and we try and make a short list of what works for that person. And that's brilliant, because then we can really like experiment and push the boundaries a little bit with that person by try this thing that's a little bit different, see how it feels. And you can really see how their comfort level. So I think it's really important that you don't force someone into a color or something that doesn't feel right, or their spidey sense is going off a little bit, because that person will not really, it's that when you buy that item that you weren't sure about, and it gets in your wardrobe, and then it generally gets worse and worse and worse. So once we make a short list of what someone likes, I always find it super helpful to look at the fabric inside, but also to go outside, because fabric will change in different light. And sometimes, depending on the fabric, if it's a rainy day, I'll tell the client to come back on a sunny day just to see what happens, because some fabrics are iridescent in the light, some take it in, and it can make a huge difference. You'll see someone, they love a fabric and they go outside, not for me. I think that's something to consider. And so, yeah, generally someone will get to like, that's the fabric I love, and go, let's measure up. So generally, made to measure would normally, the process is I put someone in the nearest block size that fits them. If that's a 36 waist and the jacket's a 44, I will pull that out and fit them in that. If the person is too small for block sizes, or block sizes go from 34 chest up to 50, which covers 90% of men, we would just measure them from scratch at the same cost. But generally people fit into a block. I'll put you into a block size, and I'll see how the jacket fits. I'll take some reads from that. And then I will take that off. I will measure you, and then I'll take photographs as well. So we photograph people in jackets, in suits, and photograph them without jackets, because it's all about looking at the body shape, how the shoulders fit, if they go forward, if they go back, if the person stands erect, if they're a sway shape, if they're head forward, if they're stooping, if they're corpulent, if they're stout. All of these things are massive into how the jacket will fit you and how the trousers will fit you. And then once we have measured someone up, we then design it together. And that's the fun aspect, because it's a collaboration. You want to help someone find their style without leading them too much. So sometimes someone will come in and say, I want to get a really wide peak lapel. And we'll have all our samples in the shop, and generally we have nearly everything we do will be there in a sample. And then they put it on and go, whoa, I couldn't wear that. Which is, I think it's so good, and someone can see themselves in the mirror, because you can design your own suit online and it will kind of sketch it out, but that's not you in the mirror looking at yourself. Yeah, it's really, that's the fun part. You designing the suit together, what kind of lapel you're going to have, how many buttons, the lining, the pockets, the trousers, pleats, forward pleats, reverse pleats, single, double, triple, if you want to go crazy. All of that is great. And the main point I think that really comes across is the person takes ownership of what they're making, because, oh, I made that decision. And that just gives them a really nice experience, because part of tailoring, besides selling the suit, is the experience when they come and see you and you build up that relationship with them.
How long does it take from start to finish typically?
We take 8 to 9 weeks. Now, I had a guy who came in on Tuesday, and he needs that suit for a meeting in Riyadh next Saturday. So that's a 12-day turnaround, which is insane. But we're going to do it for the guy because we have that flexibility. It's not a great thing to do because you can push someone else back in the queue because if you take all these rushes. But generally, it's 8 to 9 weeks, and you'd have a first fitting after 3 to 4 weeks. We'd normally make the jacket as semi-constructed with a based fit so that we can then, at that stage, we can make it longer, shorter. We can move the pockets, move the button position, which I think is essential because if you go ahead and make it full, you need to make a big change. It's not possible anymore. And then about 2 weeks later, week 6, generally you'll have the second fitting. The jacket and the suit's made up full. At that stage, the aim is to be in the 90 percentile. Sometimes it's done, which is great, or sometimes it might need a small tweak. So we say a further 2 weeks just to cover ourselves.
So do you find, so that is slow
2
fashion,
months.
right?
2 months.
Yeah. Do you find certain I mean, look, consumers are so used to getting what they want immediately, right? I go online and it's at my door same afternoon.
Yeah.
Do you find there's a tolerance for this length of time and even an appreciation for it where now I've kind of seen how this thing has come together as opposed to it just appeared.
Yeah. They're especially opening up in New York. The people are like, oh no, this is New York. I need the suit yesterday. And you're like, we can't make it in 24 hours. They're like, why not? And they're looking at me like I'm stupid. And then, so that's a little bit hard. I think it's easier in London. They're a little more aware.
Yeah.
And I also think in London, we have, or showroom in London, you need to ring a bell to get in. It's frosted windows. It's very discreet. In New York, we've got a shop window, and I think we get more walk-ins, and they don't quite understand the process. But that is a problem, especially a problem for overcoats because people come in and they come in when it's cold, and they'll come in the summer. I'll come back to get an overcoat, and then they come back when it's November, and you're like, you'll be ready in December. A coat we can do in 3 weeks, but it's still people wait until the need is there, and it's too late.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned so many of the options that attend suit construction. I wonder if any of those or any accessories or even just apparel items, if you feel, particularly from kind of a British perspective, that some of them are charged with a bit of legacy or even entitlement. I mean, here I'm talking about things like the first firm that I started at, if you were an associate, you didn't wear a dress shirt that had a contrast collar. That was the partner shirt. And associates culturally didn't wear that shirt. There was no written rule, but you just did not want to be the guy who in his late 20s was rocking the partner shirt and was a junior associate. Or suspenders. There were just these things that do you find that, or has that sort of kind of been eradicated because so few people are actually wearing suits?
I find with our clientele, they're often a little more, they're looking for something a little different. So already they're the type of person that's not too worried about conforming.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do think that still those signifiers of, especially in the UK, of class are very important. Is to other the people, to show that you're not with us, you're below us, still exists. And I think that obviously happens in America in the corporate way as well, as opposed to a class. And I don't think that serves anyone. So we would push back against that. And I think that also makes it harder for people to get into the suit world because there's so many things that I might do it the wrong way. and I think that's not good for the industry. I think it's taking down those barriers that don't serve humanity.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and creativity and self-expression, right? It shouldn't be a club that you need certain education or just legacy to get into. Um,
Yeah.
well, so broad question, but curious about your answer. What for you is the difference between fashion and style?
Fashion and style. It's a good perennial question. Style, I think, is something that someone has. It's an innate quality that someone has. It's like when I dress my kids, and when my wife dresses the kids, she's always, I hope she's not going to listen to this, but she's like, "Oh, how do you do that? How did I keep getting it wrong?" I'm like, "There's no right or wrong. It's my job, so I'm good at that." But that's just that kind of where you can just, I'd say if you had 10, especially men, if you had 10 men, one or two of them will have that innate style. You can train yourself to get good at it, to get good at combinations, but it's just that it's an innate quality style. Fashion is something that you can buy and you can wear, but and I think the stylish people who have that innate quality they give out fashion vibes, but they're just wearing what they want, and then that's co-opted sometimes into a trend that becomes something that you can sell, and then we've got the lumberjacks.
Gotcha. Well, perhaps another trend, or perhaps the future. I mean, traditionally there really was this bifurcation between women's wear and menswear, with gender fluidity, with certain elements perhaps originally designed for men looking great on women, and vice versa. We have seen some agnostic brands enter the marketplace. Do you think that is the future, where brands will kind of not, they'll just make clothes for people? Or do you feel there are some physical realities that have to be just acknowledged when designing clothes, and therefore there'll always be this bifurcation?
Yeah, there's definitely physical realities. If you're making a suit for a woman's shaped body and you're making a suit for a men's body, this most of the time a women's suit will look feminine because of the curves, because of the breasts. You can design a men's suit for a woman, and it comes across, it's a masculine silhouette. So when we say we make suits, we try not to say we're just men's, but we do a masculine silhouette. If we're making a suit for a woman, it will become feminine depending on that shape of the woman. But I also think, like, when I go to buy clothes for my kids, it's always gendered. And that's hard to break out of those stereotypes, because it's always boy girl. And I'm like, I don't care if my kids, I don't want my boys just wearing blue or masculine colors. They should be a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
But if you're setting those ideals from such a young age, it's hard for society to come out of it. But also, I think the reality of the body shapes, there'll always be a distinction.
I mean, I thrift a lot, where you can't really tell what the origin of the garment was. And sometimes it's only you get it home and you realize, oh, the button's buttoned this way. This was made for a woman, but I
Yeah.
like it.
Do you know why the buttons were the other way?
I do not. Please enlighten us.
That was because the women went at that time they'd be dressed by someone else.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So that when someone else is dressing you that way, and that's how it started and became a signifier. But I also would thrift stuff and get this beautiful cashmere cardigan, and then I'm like, and then someone goes, "That's a woman's." I'm like, "Oh, is it?" But I really like it, so it's fine. And I can remember wearing my mother's cord culottes. Culottes are those baggy wide trousers. I'm sure you know what a culotte is. But not everyone would know what a culotte is. But it looked like a giant skirt. And I'm wearing my mother's when I was 12 or 13 to the playground, bringing my kid sister. And that's like, oh my God, I'm wearing a woman's trousers, but who cares? So I think it's great. I think it's great to experiment between them, and I think it's great having brands that fit in that unisex area. But I think there'll always be. It's never. It can't just completely come together. You have to read like men and women are different. That's not a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a physical reality for sure. And then within men and women, there obviously are different body types, but there are certain consistencies. You're in New York City now, on Elizabeth Street. The location is unique. It's on a very cool block. I mean, how is it going? And what was behind the decision to come across the pond?
The decision to come across the pond was, I guess I came from Ireland and then I made a tailoring business in London. The odds were against it in a way that I was coming from a non-fashion place into the home of suits. I didn't study tailoring. I didn't study fashion. I just did it. I just started it, and it made it a success. Now, the logical step would have been to open maybe another one in maybe West London, which might be on the horizon, or in Manchester or somewhere closer. But I just had that pull of what's the next thing, that next challenge would be, could we do it in New York? And it's such an exciting, vibrant city. And we had a lot of American clients the American clients are different than the European or English clients, is that they like it and really they'll buy into it and they'll spend more. They'll get 2 or 3 items as opposed to 1 item. So that felt like there's a big risk, but it felt like the economics of it, if we can make it work, or high. So that was kind of the driver. But yeah, I dragged my 5-week-old baby and 3-year-old boy and wife, who became very unhappy out here. But she was like, "Look, we've had a second kid. I'm taking a year off. Let's indulge your dream." So we came over. In hindsight, it was a bad time because you're with a young baby and you're moving away from the family setup that you have back in where you're from. And then to open a business in New York or in America, it's completely different. The banking system is completely different. The accounting system is completely different. The law is so much more complicated. And I had to do that myself because there wasn't someone else. And you can do it, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of hard work. It means you're at home less, which causes friction in a family dynamic. But it's so worthwhile. Like, we've just made a film in Joshua Tree. We have a rebrand about to launch. And we wanted, it's something that we wanted to do is make the circle complete. We've always had a really good product, a really good experience in store, but we never fixed the website or the branding because we were just growing. So we felt like that's okay. But coming to America, it's enforced us that you need to. It's more competitive here. The stakes are higher. That you have to present. How do you say that in American way? Present. That you have to be. It's more professional here. It's which is great because it's making us raise our game. And it's been fantastic doing events. It's like meeting people. Like, we shot a film in Fire Island last year, but now with this new film, we have a Hollywood actor. We have 7 new fabrics. The actor is a character actor, and he's playing 7 different characters based on the fabrics. He's walking around the desert. We have a drone. We have all sorts, and it's like,
wow,
that's what America's brought to us, is that desire to. Let's go further. Let's think outside the box. Let's push ourselves. And that's kind of the American way, which just is so infectious to you. It just makes you go, let's think bigger. Let's push it. Let's push the boat out more. And that's been super enjoyable, and kind of celebrating yourself, as opposed to, I come from a background in Ireland where it's like, hey, don't have any notions. You're getting too big for your boots. which is kind of a small town mentality. It's kind of it really comes from an insecurity of society. They don't want someone to be doing better because then how am I doing? And that's the polar opposite over here. It's like you can set up a business here and you can have 4 or 5 failures, and that's seen as totally normal. If you set up, when I started the clothing business, I had people going, "Oh, has it failed yet?" Which is crazy.
No, it is, on our 250th anniversary, I don't want to, but United States is great for startup business, for, the culture, not thinking that you have notions if you are someone who is entrepreneurial. In fact, encouraging that. And yeah, failures are viewed as learning experiences here, as opposed to, something that you would, as they really are. I mean, and so the business of brand building, I want to sort of, because you mentioned the film and influencers. I mean, there are so many components now that a brand deploys, for lack of a better term, to build brand. And I wonder, from your perspective, if you view that as creatively engaging for you, because you mentioned a film, and I mean, elements of brand building are kind of inherently creative, but there's also a side of it which is potentially mundane and kind of just coarse. How many followers does this person have, so how many eyeballs will my brand get on, or I'm just going to outright pay for SEO placement. So how do you view it? Because it's obviously very different than making the clothes. You are making the aura around the clothes, which the clothes inform that, and their quality informs that. But when you're shooting a film, I mean, people aren't getting to inhabit the clothes, they're watching the film.
We get ads or we get emails all the time. We're going to do your SEO. We're going to hook you up with these celebrities. We're going to fix this and that. And then this is how you should do it. You got to whitelist some micro influencers. You got to do this. You got to do that. And then you have to say to yourself, well, everyone else is doing that too, or they've been told to do that. Is that the ethos of the brand? Is that what we didn't start out like that? Do we need to do that? Or how are we going to get the eyeballs on us? Because everyone else is paying lots of money to advertise. We've hardly ever advertised. We will advertise with the rebrand because that makes a bit of sense to do it now. And we're going to feel so much more prouder about the online experience. And I think that will, but I don't want to oversaturate how we advertise. I think it's playing the long game is just so much more important than chasing the quick thing, because you could spend a lot and we could go a lot faster, busier, but then those people become transient because you're no longer hip anymore, or you've used that person who all of a sudden isn't cool anymore. So I think it's a difficult one to juggle, but I think it's, you have to, what you stand for, you have to kind of stick with your ideals, even though the growth can be slower.
Yeah. Well, what contemporary brands, menswear or womenswear, do you admire, whether it's from the perspective of their design, or the brands that they have built, or their customer engagement, or really anything?
We tend not to follow too many of the new brands. Like, I would also look back to the old brands like Aquascutum or Jaeger or Cordings, which is a little one out of London. We always look for pictures and photographs or old films for inspiration. I find if you start following someone that you think is doing it well, then it's very hard not to get directly influenced by that. And I think that's, for us, we want to try and stay distinctive. So I feel like we don't follow current brands too much for that reason.
Got it. Got it. How about obviously London is considered by many to be an epicenter of menswear and in particular tailored clothing, German Street, and all of that legacy. But for you, and let's be specific to tailored clothing, where do you find, and maybe give me three global cities if you could, where men really do it well in terms of putting themselves together with tailored clothing?
My number one would be BA, Buenos Aires.
Nice.
Just it's particularly men of 50 and above, but the level of the dress sense there is just incredible. Also with this setting, you go into this beautiful coffee place or steak place or wine place, and it's just these men are just effortlessly dressed to the nines, and it's a Tuesday or Wednesday. That was for me spectacular when I was visiting there.
Yeah, well, my wife is Argentinian, so we make frequent trips down there, and I do love it. And it is such a great backdrop. That city is gorgeous, and for men that dress up in it, they just have a perfect backdrop for their
Yeah.
sartorial experience.
Tokyo is mind blowing as well. We've been there a few times. We were selling in a friend's store in Osaka. Yeah, but that also not just tailoring, it's the whole fashion world where you'd see people, remember on a Monday morning at 9 a.m., watching people walk up the street with bags full of shopping, clothes shopping at 9 a.m. I'm like, wow, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, like just watching styles and how people dress, I think London and New York sit in this special place where you can just sit down and just be entertained.
Yeah, a lot of different looks and influences, particularly in New York. It's quite
Yeah.
a melting pot here of influences. Well, how about your personal style inspiration? Have there been any men, alive or dead, who you've looked at as avatars of style that you either want to emulate or just appreciate?
Besides you, Doug,
Yes, of course, of course. Take me off the list.
one I would say, because I'm Irish and I like to read, is Samuel Beckett. He has the iconic face, the iconic hair, but you see him in like a beautiful pair of slacks, and then with like a rough cut iron kind of jumper, or in a suit, or in a long coat, and just yeah, inspiring to see that, or to see those images, and then you've got the body of work behind it as well.
Yeah.
Another one that would spring to mind would be Fela Kuti, who's the Nigerian Afrobeat star from the 70s and 80s. Remarkable person. And so then he started to go back into maybe more inspired by his native culture, and he'd wear jumpsuits or pants, or like just very, very cool, distinctive style. And I think that's two I can think of off the bat.
Well, brand collaborations have, God, I mean, really sped up to the point where there's a new one dropping seemingly every day of the week, right? And there are certain brands, large mass brands, that are always doing them, always kind of pulling some perhaps obscure but meaningful design talent and doing a collaboration with them and getting their name out there, but also getting a little bit of that halo on them, their tired selves, I guess. What are your views on brand collaborations? Have you done them? Will you do them? And in a way, what do you consider a brand collaboration? Because I consider it brand to brand, but some people might view doing a campaign with a sports professional or an actor a form of brand collaboration because those people are personal brands.
We've done a collaboration with Trickers before. Trickers, the Northampton shoemaker. We were so excited about the collaboration because they were a heritage English shoe brand. We're a little bit of an upstart. But then it transpired that we had to use their kind of popular styles, but we could just pick the leather and change a few details. And then that became, that's not, we can't get our DNA into that brand. So that was conflicted for us a little bit. We've been approached by a pretty big clothing label in high street fashion company in the UK to do a collaboration. But we turned that down because we felt it would make us some money, sure, would have been lucrative, but I feel like it would have just knocked the wind out of the sails of who we are. And I think that is important that you don't do that. We recently did a collaboration with some of our people on Elizabeth Street. We've worked with 4 or 5 entrepreneurs there to do. We made them all suits. We did a little campaign. We made a newspaper. And that for me is a great way of building community. And that for me is a great form of collaboration because you're building goodwill with this sense of community. I like that idea of collaboration. We also had a lovely event with a wedding brand called Amsala. I know you're aware of them. Because for us, the wedding dress is upstream. The wedding dress generally is a 9 months to a year turnaround. So it's great if we're collaborating with someone there because we can get referrals. And that was a lovely event where we talked about the art of making. But back to making something with someone, I think I would like to do. We're doing a collaboration with a sunglass guy at the moment. Small guy out of Hampstead.
There are some product categories where really it's I don't want to say whoring yourself out, but you're just putting the name on a product, right? I mean, it's hard to envision, no pun intended, what your glass, I mean, every type of frame has been made. So it's not like you're going to communicate Beggar's Run through a new type of frame. I don't think. I mean, God bless if you could, but I think that and perfume and certain others are very they're licensing categories really, where you're kind of just lending your name to a new product category, which can be opportunistic, but you just got to make sure the quality is where you want it to be.
Yeah, it's either you're partnering with someone who's above you, so you're giving them the street cred, and you're getting the more money out of that, and or you're partnering down where you're trying to get street cred with someone else, or you're working with someone who does something similar at the same level, and you're trying to cross-pollinate, which I think that's a good avenue for us to go into, because if we're collaborating with a perfumer or making bags, for instance, that we would use, so it's not going down or going up. You're swimming in the same area. I think that's better long term.
Well, so Elizabeth Street and downtown, did you canvass the city? Were there other neighborhoods you considered, and how are you finding it? I take it you're finding it, to be friendly, because you've already mentioned one of your great collaborations really was with some of your neighbor retailers.
Yeah, I put down a lot of shoe leather, walked all around the city, and when I got to Nolita, I was like, oh, this feels right to me. I liked Tribeca area, but there is some competitors there, so that was like, oh, this would be interesting. But you don't really want to be on someone's. I think it's nice to have a bit of integrity and not go on someone's doorstep. I think and it's also to find your area. In London, Shoreditch has become our area because there was one or two other tailors have since gone, and then you become, oh, I know a great spot. Or if someone's looking even on Google Maps, they'll go, I want to get a suit in this area. That's helpful. And also that it's just the vibe and the feeling of those three streets together, Elizabeth, Mott, and Mulberry. Just lots of little independent boutiques, shops. And I think because you go across just to Soho and it's big box.
Exactly.
And I see those same companies in Midtown. I see them at the airport. I see them in the other airport. I see them in the other country. And that's well and good, but you're not buying anything unique to that city.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
No, so it sounds like a good fit. It feels to me, having walked in several times now, like a good fit. I think each time I've walked in, you've had quite a few people in there. So I think things are going well. Well, Cian, we are unfortunately out of time. Thank you so much for joining
My pleasure.
us. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Bye now.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Laws of Style with Douglas Hand. For more information, go to our website at www.hballp.com. And you can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Hand of the Law. Thank you for tuning in, and stay stylish.